welcome to the 27th edit of Unfolding Geopolitics, the Gateway House podcast. We have with us today a very special person, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, who is a distinguished adjunct fellow at Gateway House, but he is also a former ambassador to Oman and several other countries. He has been instrumental in several of India's key trade agreements, starting with the India-Australia Free Trade Agreement, the New Zealand one, but most recently with the most exciting new agreement in the Gulf, which is the India Free Trade Agreement, the CEPA, with Oman. So, Ambassador Wadhwa, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm going to jump right in to this session. Oman, we have a traditional relationship with sailing and trading relationship with Oman. We have an Indian diaspora there that's very well received in Oman. After all these years, how did we actually get the formal free trade agreement going?
So let me start with this bilateral relationship. And you mentioned about how this agreement can be related to what we were doing a long time ago, because Indian merchants and Omani sailors are actually bound together by the Indian Ocean. And, in the olden days, spices, textiles, and grains flowed westward from the subcontinent, while dates, horses, frankincense, and maritime expertise moved eastwards. And these exchanges created a certain amount of trust that survived the colonial disruption and also the geopolitical upheavals. So, in this modern era, that civilizational connectivity has translated into steady political relations. There's a robust energy to it. And also, of course, Oman is an important source of petrochemicals for India. And there's a sizable Indian diaspora today in Oman. So, when we look at this comprehensive economic partnership with Oman, which was signed in December 2025, I don't think we can present this as yet another free trade agreement, because, of course, India is expanding its web of economic partnership. But I think we should read it more as with this deeper significance, because in many ways it's a statement about how India sees the world economy today, how it tends to engage with trusted partners, and how it is rediscovering an older trading instinct rooted in openness, in maritime connectivity, and long term commercial relationships. So I think there's more to this agreement than what we can see on the surface.
Second, I'm going to ask you a little more about the salient features of this
Mm.
through another route. This is the second agreement we have had with a Gulf country. The first was with the UAE in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about how this is different from the CEPA with the UAE?
So the UAE agreement was conceived as a very high impact, large scale commercial accelerator, leveraging the UAE's role as a global trade and re export hub. And that goes deeper into digital trade, fintech, logistics, ecosystems, and also regulatory convergence. And it delivered rapid growth in bilateral trade volumes. The Oman CEPA, by contrast, is more focused on labor and service mobility, on standards alignment and patient capital, I would say, and also reflects the fact that India wants to use Oman to export its engineering skills and also contribute to Oman's industrial infrastructure projects. So it is less about becoming a global gateway and more about anchoring a stable strategic economic partnership in a very geopolitical sensitive region. But together, these agreements point to something larger, and they suggest where India is moving away from a phase of excessive caution in trade to a more confident and selective liberalization.
Yes. Can I go back a little bit to Oman's rather strategic positioning? It is
Hmm.
flanked by two very interesting countries, one of which is Iran.
Hmm.
When you mentioned that it's important for securing India's position, can you tell us a little bit about the geopolitics and how we might um, play off it to our benefit?
So geopolitically, Oman is, like you said, at a very sensitive, position. It has excellent relationship with all the Gulf countries. It's known for its mediatory and balanced diplomacy, a sage kind of diplomacy, a sagacious diplomacy, and it has good relationship with Iran. It has good relationship with Saudi Arabia, and also, it was the only country which kept its linkages open with Qatar when there was a crisis in the Gulf, if you remember a few years ago,
Yes.
when Qatar was boycotted by countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, and others who were opposed to its what they saw as an overreach, a diplomatic overreach in other parts of the world, which actually they felt was not in keeping with the traditions of GCC.
Mm.
And that led to a certain amount of certain years of rift between them and Qatar. But Oman kept its avenues open with Qatar in those days. So it's known for its sagacious diplomacy, level-headedness, and the fact that it's at a very important position in the Gulf is praises it as a unique country. And it also has, by the way, a free trade agreement with the United States.
So that's important for us, given the
Hmm.
fact we're still negotiating a relationship trade agreement with US, which may
Mm.
not be the same kind of full free trade agreement. So
Yes,
that could be a gateway to the US. That's very interesting. Um,
absolutely.
you were talking a little bit uh, about what this means for India and the larger trading sphere. That these
Mm.
agreements have really put India in a different spot.
Mm. Yes. So I think this is, I mean, what India is trying to do is not a return to indiscriminate openness, but a calibrated strategy that prioritizes trusted partners and protects its vulnerable sectors and links market access to investment and also skills. So, in other words, what India is doing is trying to rediscover an older trading instinct, one that once made the subcontinent a central mode of Indian Ocean commerce, but updating it with a world of negotiated rules and strategic competition. And I think the India-Oman CEPA actually reflects India's belief that economic strength will increasingly rest on resilient partnerships rather than transactional exchanges, and that openness, when it is shaped by strategy rather than ideology, can be a source of stability rather than vulnerability. So it's rooted in history but designed for the future, and that suggests that India is not retreating from globalization. It is learning once again how to trade with the world, but on its own terms. And it's important because India has not been part of some important regional agreements like RCEP, for instance, like CPTPP, for instance. And these agreements give India that leverage to be able to still be open in its economy and trade with trusted partners.
That's right. We've been so shy of these global trade regimes that the
Yes.
FTAs are an important way to sort of learn to get back into the world of trading. On the Oman, it's a little bit of a last question. It's a little bit of a latecomer to the oil riches of the Gulf.
Mm.
Really, only seen this over the last 30 or 40 years. Does that,
Yeah.
in the sense, because it's a sort of a middle power in the Gulf region, does that make it a better partner? Is it more at India's level in those sense?
Well, I would say that it's an ideal partner because it's not. Now, if you look at the what has been signed, it reveals a lot because it's not just trade liberalization that has been offered both ways. In fact, India, of course, got 99.3% of value of its exports liberalized to zero.
Mm.
And Oman, very close by there, and about 95% of its goods, which India imports from Oman by value, will come in duty free. But I think the substance lies in the services trade because that's long been a strength of the Indian economy. It occupies a central place in this agreement because there are commitments now which span IT, professional and business services, healthcare, education, construction, logistics, research, development. There is also uh, a fact that Oman is committed to movement of professionals. So, Oman, for example, in this agreement has significantly expanded the quotas for intra-corporate transferees. So they've allowed contractual service suppliers to stay up for up to 2 years now in Oman with renewability. And in practical terms, what does it mean? It means that Indian companies can have up to 50% of the workforce in Oman, despite Omanization, from India. And also
Wow.
means that it also means that they can win a contract in Oman, but also deploy talent on the ground to execute them because converting this means that you convert your legal access into real economic opportunity and also scale up your operations very quickly. Then the other defining feature of this agreement is the attention to standards and certification. For example, when you talk about halal meat, for instance, now that required a lot of repetitive testing and recertification, which was timely, which was a costly affair, time-consuming process. So there are now concessions which have been granted that will affect our meat, poultry, and processed food sectors. And similarly, there's facilitation for organic products under the India's National Program for Organic Production. The pharmaceutical industry also, if there are global recognitions that they have, for example, US FDA or the European Medicines Agency or the British MHRA, then they don't have to reapply in Oman for registration.
Okay.
So that cuts down the processes, time, costs, everything. And investment cooperation is also another major pillar of this CEPA because the partnership now is at the core of what we actually want with Oman.
Mhm.
India wants to invest in Oman, not just the other way around, but also in Oman's new age industries, as we call them. And we have the expertise to invest in infrastructure and manufacturing, in financial and green energy sectors in Oman. So that will all be very good for going forward. We already have about 6,000 projects in Oman. Very few people know about that. There's a large investment in the fertilizer sector, $969 million.
Wow.
Um, and also there is a big investment in steel in Sohar, but now this makes it easier for turnkey projects to be entered into by Indian companies.
Terrific. And who really has been the driving force behind this agreement? I know that um, the famous expatriate Kimji family has been advising the Sultan.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us who from both sides has really been the driving force for this agreement.
Well, I think this agreement, one can say, is actually anchored between the excellent relationship that Prime Minister Modi has with Sultan Haitham bin Tariq, particularly after he visited India. But on the negotiating side, I think continuity has played a very big role because we have our own Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who has overseen India's recent trade re-engagement. And then there is also Oman's Commerce Minister, Qais Muhammad Al Yusuf, who's actually shaped the steel, I think, to fit into national development priorities. And Pankaj Khemji, who is the chief advisor to the Minister for Investments and Trade, has also played a very big role in actually suggesting, first of all, that India and Oman should also look at a similar agreement like UAE. So the idea actually originated from him during one of his visits, and then it went into concrete shape very, very quickly. In fact, I would say at the beginning of last year itself, there was a lot of progress made in this agreement. But since then, we've got stuck on things like petrochemicals and marbles for a long period of time, and that is now finally settled. They found fits for issues like that. But in the process, what has happened is that India has also got a lot by way of services, which I mentioned about mobility of labor and about transferees being in Oman for 2 years with renewable periods, which means that Indian companies have got that leverage now to bid for projects and also scale up very easily.
This is wonderful. We look forward to India being more geo-economically engaged with the world and being part of the global trade regimes. Thank you very much, Ambassador Vadva. We've enjoyed this talk, and we look forward to having you on in Unfolding Geopolitics again.
Thank you.